Right then, welcome back to the channel. There's been a real good podcast. Gary Neville and Stick to Football crew have done with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and it's nice to see Solskjaer in the environment of his peers and the players that he played with, and the respect that they've got for not just him as a player, but I think even for what he did as a manager. Even though ultimately he was unsuccessful at United, I think there's still respect there from everybody involved. And I'm going to go through some of his quotes. I think the headline stuff is the transfers, right? I mean, obviously, there's talk. They do talk about him scoring the winner in the 1999 Champions League final. You'd kind of expect them to talk about the winner in the Champions League final, but what can you say? Like he says, it's a striker's instinct. It's not something. It's not the greatest goal anyone's ever seen in terms of the technical ability that was used to score the goal. It's more of the emotion about what that goal was. But anyway, let's get into the transfers. I think there's the transfers and then the captaincy thing. I think that the captaincy thing is. Let's get into that one first, then, and I'll talk about the transfers and Ronaldo and that in a second. So he says he thinks Harry Maguire was the right choice as captain. And unfortunately, I agree because there was just such a lack of options when it came to. This wasn't like you was picking between Vidic and Kane and Gary Neville himself, is it? Like so you're talking like a shallow pool to begin with. He says, but players said no to being captain in certain games. He said no one refused to be the club captain, but they'd get coaches to come and tell Ollie that they didn't want to be captain. They obviously all say it's something they'd have never done as players, but nowadays it's a done thing. And you think someone needs to get a grip of these kids. We need an Erik Harrison in the building to just talk and beat some sense into some of these kids, because imagine being offered the opportunity to captain Manchester United and saying no. And to me, that is a huge indictment on why we're in the sort of situations we're in, because clearly there's not enough character. Maybe in the game as a whole, right? But clearly there isn't enough character. Clearly not enough character when it comes to people doing that, because that's out of order, and I don't agree with that. Um, and either this or Ronaldo's going to end up being the headline, I think. But when he talks about missing out on Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, Erling Haaland, he speaks about the summer before he got here, he rang United saying he's going to be top, absolutely top. You've got to sign this lad. The scout that was involved in that has actually been on record saying, he was pushed heavily to United recently as well. But hearing it out of Ollie's mouth, he says that was in June, July 2018, and they said, nah, they've got enough reports. He goes, then I become caretaker and I tell the club straight away, buy him before he's played for Salzburg. That would have been 20 million. And you go, right. Now, we'd heard a little bit about that one. The Jude Bellingham one's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we heard recently that John Murta decided that he didn't want Fergie being the one to sort of like get that one over the line. Is that an ego thing from John Murta? Because I'm going to be honest with you, if you've got the ability to roll for Alex Ferguson out to get a deal over the line, you roll for Alex Ferguson out and you get the deal over the line, especially if Fergie wants to do it, which it seemed like he did. And missing out on Declan Rice as well. And you think those three players, with some of the other additions in the team, gives you the basis. I mean, we might see it with England at the moment, but Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham as the basis for your midfield with Erling Haaland in front of them. And we also know that he wanted Casado. There's other players that we know that Ollie wanted. And you just think, if we'd listened to the guy, and when people talk about the absolute shit show of the structure that we've got, you have to ask the questions, which signings did he want? Which signings was he aware of? Now, like, I've told you how the Ronaldo deal went, and I said I don't know if Ollie was aware of it. By the sounds of it, the club decided to do it, and he probably found out. He found out before all of us lot found out, I'm sure, but I think he found out late in terms of what was happening. And obviously the Ronaldo one, was signing Cristiano Ronaldo a regret? What would you do differently? And Ole says the right thing was to sign Ronaldo or Cristiano. He says, but it would have turned out better for Cristiano and us if he hadn't signed. That's the headline. And he's right. That probably might be the headline I go with, in all honesty. But ultimately, yeah, I think he's right. I think signing Varane, I think you had to do. I think it was a good option. He's been a good player when he's played. He's not played every game, but he's been a pretty good, damn good player when he's played. Sancho was clearly a mistake. And again, was that an Ole Gunnar Solsjaer decision, or was that a long-term target of the club's? And I'm not necessarily against the club having long-term targets and occasionally even overruling the manager, because I think sometimes that is the right thing to do. I mean, I forget who it is that Jurgen Klopp wanted instead of Mo Salah, but the club insisted that they had the correct reports. Now, maybe Liverpool had earned the track record at the time as that transfer committee, which when it was formed got a lot of shit. But I think that one deal alone allows them to be listened to. Mo Salah's been an absolute revelation for Liverpool, and honestly, whoever he wanted, it was someone that would not have even come close to do what Mo Salah's done. Oh, excuse me. Up early for this one. So you got to go, right, all right. Maybe you have to trust the club sometimes. I wouldn't trust Manchester United to do it at the moment because the club's track record is awful. And I think that's the issue. I think a lot of what we've been asking to do is asking managers to recruit old school style, the way managers used to recruit in the 70s and the 80s, where they just watch a player themselves and go, yep, that's the guy I want, and that's what we're bringing in. And it's hit and miss. Martinez, hit. Onana, I think a hit. Anthony, not a hit. Malacia. I mean, I have seen the conspiracy theories that Malacia might be dead at the moment. But the guys are missing, isn't he, at the end of the day? And so is Mason Mount. So you have to say Malacia, miss. Mason Mount, miss. Like, literally, we spent 60 million to have him for, 4 games when we could have got him free in the summer? We should have waited to get him for free in the summer. Like, because that 60 million then could have gone to somebody else that might have actually played for us this season. Do you know what I mean? So, I think a transfer committee is a good idea when it's able to bring in players. Maybe they would have brought in players, but it definitely feels like it was more of an executive decision. And it feels like you also probably had to stop Ronaldo going to Manchester City because he probably wins the Champions League for them. And then all of those memories that we have of Cristiano Ronaldo, they have to go. They have to go. You can't watch Cristiano Ronaldo do what Erling Haaland has just done for Manchester City in terms of deliver them the Champions League. And he would have delivered them the Champions League. Because the way that Manchester City team is, you can be a lazy forward that just comes alive in the box and gets chances and puts them away. You absolutely could have done that. And Cristiano Ronaldo could have and would have done that for Manchester City. Would he have been there more than a year or two? No, I don't think he would have been, in all honesty. But I think he'd have won everything. And then that would have tarnished his relationship with Manchester United. And that would have, and by doing that, that tarnishes my memory of Manchester United winning the Champions League and the league with Cristiano Ronaldo a few years ago. I think him coming back and not being quite as good, it doesn't affect my memory of him. And like me sitting here saying, I don't think he was that good for us, doesn't mean I now dislike him or I wish him ill. But I couldn't say that if he went to Manchester City. So I think ultimately Solskjaer's right. It was good to see him. It's a great interview, as they always are on Stick to Football. They've had some absolute showstoppers lately, with Beckham and Rooney and that. I'm sure you're going to watch it. But if you was iffy, absolutely go and watch it. It's fantastic. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.